Let's get crazy. Let's go nuts.
Hey everybody, it's Boss Barrel Radio. My name is Griffin Hoffman, and with me, as always, is Jeff Brewer.
Hey, what's up?
And James Scherer.
Hey, everybody.
Throw to James there, Scherer. Throw to Jeff Grubbins.
Jeff Grubbins. This is an inside joke that the audience will not understand.
Grubbins.
Jeff Grubbins and Griff Hobbins.
The Hobbins is here. Hobbins in the morning.
We started off in a very strange place. You see, can I explain to the audience? We have a recording software that has humorous names, and they are contortions of our existing names.
We knew you'd enjoy it.
Yeah.
We did
comedy
it for you.
gold.
It's a very good joke that everyone will understand. Hey, it's been like 3 months since we did one of these too, so that's also a funny thing.
Yeah.
Yes. Speaking of good jokes, we're a podcast that records occasionally, and it's mostly just good friends talking about video games, trying to make each other laugh, and occasionally taking bets and trying to force other people, including ourselves, to play a game that we may not necessarily be interested in.
It's kind of like the Saw of video game podcasts.
But hornier.
Speak for yourself, brother.
I am.
I know.
You know who's just losing it more and more? Speaking of game shows and wagers, is Pat Sajak. Have you guys watched an episode of Wheel of Fortune lately?
No, although I would argue that Alex Trebek has
still in my 30s.
I would argue that Alex Trebek has lost it significantly more than Pat Sajak with his demise.
I didn't think you knew he died.
You didn't think I know Alex Trebek? Dude,
the way you were
Jeopardy.
talking. Okay,
No.
good. What do you think of Bialish?
Can I buy a Segway?
One of those things they use only for city tours now?
Oh, yeah, and Paul Blart movies.
Yes. Wait, I just quickly, before we'll skip over my inappropriate joke, and Jamie, tell me, why is Pat Sajak bad now?
No, he's great. I love him. He's
lost it.
Sliding more and more into madness, and it's visible in his everyday comportment. I highly recommend you all check it out.
I don't think I could watch Wheel of Fortune. I actually don't think I'm physically capable of it through... can you stream it?
One of the answers to the puzzle yesterday was... Let's get crazy, let's go nuts. But it was said by a Southern person. So, let's get crazy, let's go nuts. And then Pat Sajak just looked stunned.
Pat Sajak got crazy, and the show ended prematurely.
There's got to be a Pat Sajak. There's got to be Wheel of Fortune video games on like Nintendo DS and.
Oh yeah,
I thought you were going to say a soundboard. Who's your daddy?
There are definitely Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy games, but I think each one is more low effort than the last. Also, I think they oftentimes don't pay for the likenesses of the hosts, so it'll just be like generic white guy being like, "Let's turn the letters over."
As someone who occasionally will go to used game stores, I was just at one a couple of days ago, and they typically have like a big vat full of GBA games. Like all the good GBA games are behind glass, but you can go over to the vat and just find 30,000 copies of Cars, the Pixar movie, the game.
To that I say, ka-chow.
My Little Ponies. Yeah, all the ponies.
And there's a lot of
items.
I bet I could get a Wheel of Fortune GBA cart.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Don't you guys think?
I don't think you need to do that.
Why not? They're usually like $1 or $2.
You have a finite amount of time on this earth, Jamie.
Exactly.
Griffin,
always,
always the depressing voice of logic, Griffin. Telling us to use our time well in this mortal coil.
Listen, unless you want to figure out a way to record that, and then we all watch you play a Jeopardy game or Wheel of Fortune game, and then we make content out of it, then I don't give a shit.
If it's content, it's worthwhile time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Logan Paul story. Let's talk about video games, guys.
Nah.
Let's do it.
No? Okay, shut it down. The podcast is over. We did it, guys. See you again in 3 months.
Yep, see you again next year.
Legitimately, I can't believe how long it's been, and this is shameless, but Griffin, I noticed you put FF7 Intermission on your list, and I was like, that came out after the last time we talked?
I don't know if it did, honestly.
I think it actually did. Wasn't it like a June or July thing? I think it was.
I don't know, because I had so much trouble downloading it that I assumed that maybe we had already talked about it, or, I guess we've got records of this information.
No, that's ridiculous.
No, you're right. It was a June release,
Yeah.
huh?
Yep. I don't think we've talked about it, and I kind of want to talk about it. I
Let's do it.
feel like you should start, but I have some feelings about
Strong-arming me
stuff.
into talking about video games and not the Vitamix that I just got.
I do want to hear about the Vitamix. Does it live up to your expectations?
Why are they so
I
expensive?
haven't used it yet.
What, Griffin?
We all cope in different ways.
I just want one of those Will It Blend blenders. I just want to throw an iPhone on there and see what happens.
I should probably start with that. That makes more sense. No, let's talk about some video games. And yeah, Jeff, I put it on my list, and I don't really have a lot of strong opinions on it, in that I haven't played enough of it to really formulate them. I just met my compatriot, and I don't even think I've been in a battle with him yet.
I can't remember his name. I'm going to call him Saruman. I know that's incorrect. I think it starts with an S.
I think it's Frodo Baggins.
It's not Sasuke. I know that much.
Nope.
I
have been watching a lot of Naruto clips on YouTube, though, lately. Don't know
yeah?
what that's compelled me to do that.
Just AMVs or what?
Yeah, mashups with Linkin Park.
Just with Sasuke and Naruto making eyes at each other?
The
They're my
Sharingan.
OTP.
Yeah.
They're my OTP. It's one true pairing, in case anyone knows. Anyway, I would love to talk about Intermission. Jamie, did you beat it?
No, I played embarrassingly little. I played basically the opening level. I was completely enthralled, and then I don't know, man, life, whatever. I don't know.
All right,
I want to play more.
Okay, well, I guess I'll talk about it a little bit. So it's been a little while, so forgive me if I don't remember much. But so obviously, for people who don't know, this is Yuffie's story. There was a very convoluted release scheme, let's call it, which was basically if you get the PS5 version of the game, or if you upgrade your PS4 version to PS5, you can download this DLC. It's exclusive to PS5 because what else are you going to use that $500 hunk of plastic for? But it's Yuffie's story, and it puts Yuffie in Midgar, and you get to wander around and basically play 5 more hours of FF7 Remake with a couple little wrinkles. Your buddy, Sasuke Saruman, whatever his name is, you don't control him, unlike in the other game. So, Sonon, that's his name, Sonon. So you don't control him like you do with your other characters. You can't switch to him, but he kind of synergizes with Yuffie. It's actually pretty cool.
I love synergy.
Oh, man, I just remembered why I didn't progress in this game.
What's that?
Condor Mountain.
Oh, you can't beat Fort Condor?
Fort Condor. No, I beat it. I'm just loving it.
Oh, okay. Well, it's pretty finite. Okay,
But
so
I like
Griffin's talking
playing it.
about one of the best parts of the game. So, people who've played the original Final Fantasy VII will recall there is a portion of the game where you go to a fort with a large bird on it called Fort Condor, and the fort is just a vehicle for playing a silly minigame where it's basically like Baby's
Tower
first
defense.
RTS.
Yeah.
Yeah, Baby's first tower defense, exactly. And throughout the game, if you go back at certain points, there will be story battles you can play, and you can unlock stuff. But anyway, in this game, it's completely reimagined, and it's essentially it's pretty similar, I guess, in terms of the core mechanics but it's like more of like you build like a deck of cards for your units. Would you say that's accurate?
That sounds like it's right up your alley.
Deck of cards, but I think that the thing that really vexes me is like you have to choose kind of like a template.
Yes.
Like maybe like a deck archetype that you fit your cards into, and that influences then the cards that you would all the carbs that you would want to have.
The different variables are like how quickly your like summoning energy replenishes, like your maximum summoning energy. You have like spells basically, or like materia, which are basically like big strong one shots that do different things. Like haste will like speed up or empower a bunch of units. Like, you know, you have like Fire, which will cast spells on units and hurt damage in an area. Then you have like heals and stuff like that. And yeah, so you're essentially like building different types of teams, and at the core of it is like a rock paper scissors dynamic where like I can't remember exactly what each thing is, but I think it's like red beats green beats blue, and blue beats red, I think is how it works.
Yeah, defense, attack, support,
something like that. Yeah.
And
it's actually really fun. It's definitely my favorite part of the DLC. And for like the first couple hours of the game, you can just walk around sector 7, yeah, and just play cards with like some lesser characters from the game, like Biggs and Wedge, and I think Jesse plays. Cool. Yeah,
it's Jesse's cool. One of your first opponents. Yeah,
yeah, and it
random salary man.
Yes, the random salary man
who wants to get closer to his daughter by playing the game.
Can you also play with the guy who loves Shinra? I can't remember. I think you might be able to. You can also play with freaking Hairman Roche.
Oh, cool.
Yes,
that's great.
You can play with Roche, and he's got like an aggressive deck too, which fits his personality.
He does, and he definitely would love to settle down with Cloud, and I'm very happy about it.
Mm-hmm.
He's the classic Japanese gay-coded villain who isn't actually gay, because that would be too transgressive.
Nor a villain.
Nor a villain. Yes, it's true. It's very true. But anyway, so that minigame is super cool, and definitely a highlight of the DLC. What I don't know if I love about the DLC is that we're getting deep into the collection of Final Fantasy VII here. Like, the Griffin rejoice, because we are all up in Dirge of Cerberus now.
Oh yeah, give me a third person shooting mechanic in my Final Fantasy VII game.
No, I mean it's so okay. It's not that we're getting into the mechanics; it's that we're getting into the deep extra lore, like
the lore.
Yeah, Weiss and some other man, and like actual vampires. I don't know.
Right? Hey, did you think that the Turks were cool? Well, what if we had the Turks that happened after the 2000s? Nope, nobody wants that.
Yeah, I mean, to the credit of the writing crew and everyone else, the story is handled pretty well. And I would say that the kind of more, let's say, extended universe elements that they bring in only show up kind of later in the story, as far as I can tell. I mean, there might be others, but I didn't consume that media, so I have no idea. But yeah, it's very clear after this game that like this is going to be a full universe story, for better or worse, and I don't know which one it is yet. It was fun to fight the guys. I mean, I don't know. I felt like this game was a lot easier than the core game. You could become pretty broken pretty fast, but it was still fun. But it
sounds like it lost a little bit of its luster for you. I mean, we were all, I think, if I remember correctly, but correct me if I'm mistaken, fairly smitten with the OG remake, and it sounds like you're just not super. This isn't reaching the same heights for you.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, I think that the writing remains strong. It's got some running jokes. It's a little more lighthearted because it's Yuffie's story, so there's kind of some gags about Wu-Tai. And it provides a little bit of like Wu-Tai flavor that I think was missing in the original, which is pretty cool. But I just don't love the extra universe stuff. I never really have. Like, that was the one thing about Final Fantasy VII Remake that and I'll step into spoiler territory for anyone who cares here, but the last, let's say, fifth of that game or whatever, maybe the last like eighth of that game goes into some pretty weird territory involving like rewriting history and challenging fate and all this other crap, which
completely pulling the rug out of my favorite Final Fantasy game. Just kidding.
Which is fine. I'm not against them telling a story that is aware of its past and that tries to do something interesting with a meta narrative. What I was more actually bothered by was kind of I felt kind of lazy creature design and the bringing in of, like, kind of under a guise of something else, bringing in potentially Advent Children characters. I don't know if you guys read theories about those 3 guys that you fight in the end of the game, but people think they're from Advent Children. And that I just don't really care for or about, because I think most of the extended universe of FF7 is not that great.
Wait, are you the 3 in the core game or in the DLC? Or is there 3 guys you fight?
In the core game. So when you're fighting Fate, you fight like 3 like emissaries or whatever, and if you read their bios, they're like clearly from Advent Children.
I don't know if that's the case. I think it's like they're archetypes, right? There's another argument out there that says they're like they're the players minus Aerith.
Maybe,
Aerith.
yeah, or like Pokemon Sword, Shield, and Gun. I don't know. There could be any number of things, but there's a widely held theory that they're related to Advent Children, and that's where I get less excited, because I think that Square kind of loses the plot when they get so focused on these like heady meta narratives with like characters traveling through time and space and recursion and all kinds of other shit. So like, I think if they go that direction, there's a lot of risk. And that's why I'm less than thrilled about them bringing in some of these extended universe characters. That said, I mean, I loved Intermission. Don't get me wrong. It was really fun to play. There's some really fun interplay between you and Scarlet, the weapons lady with the red dress and giant boobs. I don't know how else to describe her. That's all she is.
Oh, the Shinra person.
Yeah. But she has some really fun stuff going on and some good characterization. And also,
Gotcha.
they do a lot more to implicate Shinra and kind of like what they did to Wuchai during the war. So that stuff I love. It's just, again, whenever they start bringing in some of the wider universe stuff, I get a little bit trepidatious, let's say, because I don't feel like they necessarily did a good job on that stuff to begin with. So I'm kind of like, maybe we can just pretend it never happened. But they are not doing that. And, I guess they're walking the harder path. But no, you guys should both finish it. It's quite a good game. And
how long would you say?
I think I spent maybe around like 7 or 8 hours on it. If even.
Wow.
It's not that long.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, it's just a couple chapters. I mean, it feels generous in that it's not just over in a blink, but it's not particularly long either.
That's cool. More than anything else, that 7 or 8 hours is compelling me to
give it a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're
Jamie,
interested, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'll just say, like, Jamie, if you haven't, I was Googling it. I'm sure you guys don't have this problem that I do, where you're dealing with a disc version of Final Fantasy VII for the remake for the PlayStation 4, and then you're trying to jump through the hoops of downloading the 5, and then, excuse me, then downloading the DLC associated with the 5.
No. I mean, I went through that nonsense, and I got it, but no, I have the digital version.
I recall Griffin having a disastrous time with all of that.
It's a hot mess. Yeah. Top Google results when you put in Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's like, how do I download the DLC? And I'm like, oh, preach, man. It is a disaster. But from what I played of it, I think mechanically I'm having a fun time, where Yuffie operates a little differently, where you don't have the breadth of party members, well, at least from what I've played. So
no, you don't.
You have the agency to inflict static or elemental attacks with your shriek and boomerang thing that then you can like juice up with some skills to then on the fly like flip between different status or elemental attributes that then help move combat along a little bit faster. Whereas if you're like me and you chose poorly and put in an elemental attack on your sword in the
Hell House,
the Hell House Coliseum,
we all did.
And you just got bored.
It's like a 30-minute battle,
20 minutes. Yeah, so that alleviates a lot of that. But there's still the fetch quests that
but
were
they're
in the other
not
game.
Bad. Yeah.
No, by no means. And it's like, Jeff, I think you were saying this too, like, it's fun to return to the areas that you were, but playing from a different perspective. I think you also mentioned, like, it is very shonen, and I would agree with you on that. Yeah. But there's still plenty of opportunity for the game to showcase maybe some more of what's happening in the background and give some exposition on what what people think of Wu-Tai and what Wu-Tai is in the grand scheme of the Final Fantasy lore. So I've been enjoying quite a bit of that. And I'm not super far in, but I Jeff, that's really compelling that you're saying it's only 7 or 8 hours. So I
if even
return to it.
And I also am going to say it definitely keeps you busy. So first of all, the combat, Griffin, you mentioned that, and I think it bears a little bit more investigation. When I first started playing this game, I was like, wow, this combat is like extremely difficult and unforgiving, and if you screw up once, you're boned. After, let's say, an hour, I was like, oh, this combat is the easiest thing ever, but it makes you feel so powerful. Because Yuffie is really like a jack of all trades. She can do anything.
Yeah. Cool. It was kind of a crash course in how to play Final Fantasy VII again really quickly, and I was like, "Oh God, I'm not ready for this." Yeah, but then it's
a great
give you
system.
Plenty of agency. Yeah,
they do. And then the other thing I was going to say is they give you an interactable with the world where Yuffie can chuck her shuriken at stuff, and it is used to great effect all throughout the game in a lot of fun different ways. There are lots of just random mini games where like you get on a conveyor belt and they're like, hey, how many boxes can you break with this thing? And it's stupid, but it's also great. I appreciate when Final Fantasy, especially Final Fantasy VII, just dips into that dumb mini game territory for funsies.
Yeah, it feels like they threw in a bunch of QuickTime events that were like, but it's a QuickTime event, but with no pressure.
Yeah. The conveyor belt segments, I think you can redo them, but I never bothered to. But like, it gives you a score at the end, so clearly it cares about them to some degree. But it's fun. It's a great little slice of delicious gaming food. It's one of the worst things I've ever said. Anyway,
I loved it.
Carrying on. It's good. You guys should finish it. I think it's a worthy addition to the canon of the story, but it tells me that maybe future DLCs are going to be, where they explore a lot of this collection of Final Fantasy crap, but at some point it's probably going to intertwine with the main story in ways that annoy me, but we'll see.
Sure. Speaking of gaming food, Jamie, you want to talk about bacon? Do you smell bacon? What is that? Is that some sweet boar's bacon?
Oh, I did take a shit on the ground.
Oh yeah, baby.
I'm sorry.
What?
I'm sorry.
Do you want to talk at all about Psychonauts 2 and the return of Raz and Ford Cruller, the bacon lover?
So I think you'll have to correct me, Griff, if I'm wrong, and I hope I am. I think it was because after taking the psychiatry boards, a 9.5 hour long test, I came home and opened Psychonauts 2, and I didn't hate it, but
this is all wrong. These weren't on the test.
And I don't know. I had fun, and I love the vibe of it. The writing seemed pretty good, but it definitely to me seemed a little not even last gen, but 2 gens ago at least. And also there were some like annoying things that maybe to my broken brain at the time weren't signposted well enough, so I was like rolling off the level multiple times and floating off the level, and I don't know, it didn't grab me enough. I was planning on playing it through before Deathloop, but I pretty much just jumped right into Deathloop because I bounced off of it pretty hard. But what's your experience with it, Ben?
So could I ask you how is there a
Not
milestone moment that you've gotten to at this point in the game?
I don't think so.
What brain was the last one you jumped into?
The first one, the dentist.
Oh goodness. Okay. Yeah, you definitely should give it another shot.
Okay.
Yes, the dentist brain does, I mean, for better or for worse, does kind of like bring back a lot of those memories of the end of Psychonauts 1, which is irrefutably a disaster. So I would say just kind of, by no means does the game play like the old one, but it harkens back to that, and you're like, I didn't like this before. Push through for another 30 minutes, you'll get through it, and then you'll move into a new area, which is actually really, really interesting. So Psychonauts 2 game, 16 years in the making. Fig, darling, and who knows what other funding platforms it's been associated with. I don't think it was a Kickstarter, right? But purchased by now Double Fine.
I believe it's been associated with the funding platform Microsoft.
Yeah. So I'm having a great time with it. I've been playing through I'm in a new world that's post the introduction, and I've got the powers. But Jamie, to your point though, I would say that it's an action platformer with the.
That was a good Freudian slip with the dentist. It's an action platformer.
Oh yeah.
But I the combat felt great. The jumping and running around felt great. A couple of the things that you have to do, like rolling on a ball and floating around, felt oddly bad, and almost like they didn't gel with the rest of the game. So I'm hoping there's a lot more combat than there is rolling around on a ball.
So that's funny you bring that up. I think that for me, the combat is my least enjoyable portion of the game. The traversal, the moment-to-moment jokes, the kind of objectives, the story that you're going through, I'm having a really fantastic time with, and I think it's on par with the original Psychonauts, and the diversity of worlds that you can then go explore is so much fun, and then even kind of like the offshoots that you can go engage in is excellent. Jeff, you had something to say?
Yeah, I was going to say, as someone who hasn't played either Psychonauts, can you give me a really quick pitch as to kind of what's the central conceit of the games?
So this lady's afraid of birds, right? And then all the birds turn on her, and it's black and white, and
then it's not.
Alfred Hitchcock? Alfred Hitchcock the game.
Oh shit, Jamie. No, you confused that with the sequel. This one is the one where you take a shower and then somebody murders you in it, and then it's not.
Okay, gotcha. I think Griff is probably better suited to explain it, but it almost feels like the missing link between Banjo-Kazooie on the N64 and
a good game.
That game is a stupid game. Wait, so essentially what you're doing, right, is you go to a summer camp and you
here's the elevator pitch for it, right? So Psychonauts the game is an action platformer where your character has psychic abilities. It's third person, and every quote-unquote level or milestone area in the game is somebody within the world that you're meeting, whether it's an adult or a kid or a villain or something like that, and their brain and their mentality, their I don't know, you guys are the brain people.
So you have to steal their heart?
No, it's not bad. It's a good game.
Wait,
on
Persona 5?
I thought you were making a Kingdom Hearts reference, but
no.
Yeah, no. Persona 5 is a great reference there, where it's the way that the person behaves and the way their mind works is represented within the level. So a good example would be in Psychonauts. You jump into one of the minds of one of the camp counselors or special secret service mind agents. Sasha, his brain is the world you go into is a perfect cube that is tightly organized, and everything is very regimented, because he as a person is very rules specific and very analytical, and he is a researcher, and has kind of this stereotypical I don't know if it's German, but
buttoned up Northern European type,
mindset.
Yeah.
So and then it definitely spins out into different directions from that, and there's some wild stuff. But
so
it's a lot of a vehicle for humor.
Mind capers, basically, and they're funny.
Mind capers, and they're funny, but also, especially in Psychonauts 2, there's some challenges, and there's some, like Jamie said, plenty of combat, your third person punchy stuff, as well as, special abilities, and then some mild puzzle solving, and then some mild traversal. And it's just like a great take on a older generation game that is respectful for your time and keeps moving things forward, but then also has like that high quality, like punch, and depth and humor that something like, a not to say it's on the par with like Celeste or something like that, but like something where it is saying, here's a message that we want to convey. It's like a good Sesame Street episode where it's like, oh wow,
I mean,
this is actually very good.
That Double Fine writing, essentially. Like, there's it's funny, but it kind of touches you a little bit. It's memorable. It sticks with you. It's tropes and it's themes and stuff hang around.
Yes, I would say that's true. That's a good summary, Jeff. Except in this case, I think it's less funny and more on the education side of things.
So if I play Psychonauts, I can also pass the boards. And learn not to sleep.
Well, they don't matter. Clients. So much like Psychonauts, they don't matter, I guess.
It was just a bunch of questions about I am so Tim Schafer. It was just a bunch of questions about Tim Schafer on the boards. It was so odd. I almost forgot his name, which is just
he called you a loser or something.
I know. Yeah.
Jamie, you might be happy to hear this. If you continue forward through the game, you will get to find, or you get to interact with Tim Schafer's favorite person in the world, who unfortunately is not you.
Hitler?
Close.
Sorry.
Cut it out.
Jack Black.
Oh, nice. Oh, okay. Now I will play the game. Oh,
but it's
man.
a very different Jack Black. Like, I was playing it and I was like, this is JB, right? And I had to actually go look it up and be like, oh,
is Elijah Wood in there too?
Different flavor. I don't know if they talk anymore.
Really?
I don't. I actually don't.
I was going to say, do you know some inside drama?
I don't. And it's just a bad joke.
Tim Schafer say that hobbitses are no longer his friends?
All I know is Tim Schafer probably enjoys a second breakfast, as do I.
That's fair.
But yeah, Psychonauts 2, long time cooking, jokes, doing okay. I think playability, Jamie, I agree with you 100%. It's hitting its marks, but by no means is it going to be any kind of like upheaval of the third-person action platformer scheme. It's a good game. I mean, I really want to keep playing it. I think what I've heard is people say that it's around a 20 to 30 hour game. I feel like I've put a good chunk amount of, I've probably put in 8 hours or so at this point, and it doesn't feel like there's any end in sight, but it's just kind of a nice thing to go back to and play like a very simplified platformer, but not in a bad way, not in like what was that hot trash thing that was
Ukulele.
The Banjo-Kazooie. Yes, yep.
People like that game. I mean, it didn't review well, but people do like it very much.
Yeah, well, people
like Banjo-Kazooie, though, so, you can't account for taste.
Yeah, true.
Do you have any other thoughts on Psychonauts? It sounds like it's something that you guys are going to like, but I will probably not touch.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be able to convince you to ever play it if you didn't care for the first one. I think that maybe the only thing that I would say that I'm curious about is I have heard other players of the game, critics of the game, like say like it actually has some pretty powerful messages towards it the end, and it's like in contention for game of the year.
Oh, wow.
I know that the the Pantheon is fairly limited this year because of everything. But I want to keep playing because I enjoy the first game, and this one is definitely stacking up in regards to being a diligent sequel. But I don't think I'd ever be able to convince you that it's worthwhile.
I think I'm just not really a 3D action platformer guy unless it's Mario. Like, I see another game on your list here, which I'm guessing that you had probably a decent time with, Griff, which is the Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. And I've tried those games many times, and I just don't. They just bounce right off me. I'm just like, this is cute, I guess.
But that
game's all about shooping.
That game kicks ass.
Yep.
I love that game.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful game. It's fun to pull those triggers.
It's a great game.
Fun to be a Lombax. Damn, feels good to be a Lombax.
Does it show off the hyper load or whatever? I can't even remember what it's called anymore. This is how pointless the marketing was. Right. What's the thing that makes
Mark Cerny's speed blast processing, brought to you by
Do you like how
Andrew House?
They made it so you can use SSDs, and they're like, yeah, just use whatever.
Yeah.
They're like, it doesn't really matter.
Use whatever, but also if you do, it might be fucked.
No, but it's not. I think there was just an article I saw today that was like, yeah, it's fine. You can just buy cheaper stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It might not. And maybe there's a theoretical minimum that you have to be hitting, but it sounds like it's not nearly as magical as Sony made it out to be. But surprise of the century. I'll have to look into it more, but it doesn't seem like it's a huge deal. But is that feature, which I can't remember the name of, used to great effect?
So I don't know, Jamie, if you want to talk any more about Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, it came out mid-year this year. I played it through to completion, had a really good time with it. I'll just say this real quick. I mean, it's Ratchet and Clank, right? Again, Jeff, if you don't like the series, if you're not into it, if you're not into an action platformer that's heavily focused on shooting stuff, you're not gonna.
Yeah, you're not gonna like it. That said, it's a really good one of those. So if you ever have the itch,
that's the one to play.
It is definitely, in my opinion, the best Ratchet and Clank for sure. I think it does show off the PS5's capabilities fairly well. It has, not only does it do Tim Cerny's blast processing TM, but it also has a wonderful 60 hertz while still ray traced mode, which is really breathtaking. And it's just a great game, and funny and quick and snappy, and I absolutely loved it. It'll definitely be in contention for GOTY for me as well.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah.
I, for one, am mad because I didn't think they had girl Lombaxes.
The fur is real good. So if you are a furry, or if you're a closet furry,
that's me.
Then go for it.
All right.
Yeah.
I do. I've been following more and more furries. I feel like we're right on the precipice of furry being mainstream, guys.
Yeah, next president's going to be a furry.
Yeah, exactly. I think
Kamala Harris confirmed.
When Trump comes back for his,
she's changed her name to Kamala Furris.
Well, she's married to a Jewish guy, so she's really got to be a furry in some. I can make that joke because I'm Jewish. Okay, everyone, calm down. Put your phones down. Put your computers down. Don't dox me.
In case you were wondering, he lives at never mind. Okay, and so I will keep that in mind for Ratchet and Clank, because it do be furry. I was excited about it initially. I just, realistically, it's just like I'd rather play dumb anime RPGs than play Ratchet and Clank, which is what I'm currently doing.
It's definitely like a shut your brain off kind of action platformer, which is nice sometimes. The story is endearing, always, with all those fucking pouty-eyed little Disney-looking motherfuckers. But it has enough oomph to keep moving you through it. I kept playing it, even in the drought times of June. And Jamie, I agree with you. It definitely is head and shoulders above other Ratchet and Clank games because of just the diversity of environments that you get to enjoy, and then also like one of the big selling points for Ratchet and Clank games is the weapons that you use, and then they upgrade and level up and do different things, and this game takes that to the next.
The weapons
experiment.
are amazing.
Yeah,
I loved. What's your favorite combo? My combo is to use, it's essentially the sprinkler that you put out, Jeff. And when it sprinkles the enemies, they turn into plants. And once the enemies are rooted to the ground as plants, I walk up to them with the pixelizer and I shoot them and they turn into pixels and scatter everywhere. And it's wonderful.
That sounds kind of cool.
Don't think I got a pixelizer.
You didn't get the pixelizer? I love the pixelizer. If you shoot an enemy that's not a plant, they just turn into pixelized, like voxelized versions of whatever they are, and then scatter everywhere.
Cow.
It's amazing.
Need to go. I don't know if I got that, but I do like the sprinkler for sure.
Can I ask an important question about Ratchet and Clank weapons? Does the pixelizer just one hit kill everyone? Like, how do they balance that?
No, you can level it up. What's funny is, so if you walk up to an enemy and he's strong, or you haven't leveled up your pixelizer enough, you turn him into pixels, but then he's still just walking around doing whatever he would do, but as, a voxelized version of himself.
All right, that's kind of cool.
Well, leveling up the weapons in Ratchet and Clank games, and this one in particular, is extraordinarily satisfying because each weapon has a unique kind of leveling up sphere grid, and each of those sphere grids kind of lean into what makes the weapon unique in the first place.
Huh.
And I find it just really fun and quite addicting to just level up all the weapons. And, you even, I don't know if you did this, Griff, at all, but I was even like farming for essentially the bolts that you used to upgrade them. And some other things, just because I was having so much fun just seeing how badass they could become.
Yes. I did. There's a point where you maximize everything, and then it's like, okay, what else am I gonna do? I'm looking up pixelizer, and I guess it was a pre-order bonus.
Oh.
No. Are
Sony, you devil?
Kidding me?
Pre-order incentive for players who pre-ordered Rift Apart. This is from, I'm reading an IGN article.
Oh my god, that's horrible.
But it looks like you can get it through some other means that's not a pre-order.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Does it require
so that
US
makes sense
dollars?
that I did not see this. No. There's, well, I guess I'm not reading further enough into it to see if there's skins. But Jamie, to answer your question, my favorite weapon in that game was, gosh, I don't even remember the name, but it was the weapon that was like the electrocution gun.
Yeah, that's a great one.
For the sole purpose that when you'd be fighting the enemies, right, and they're like, ha ha ha, little longbacks, we're gonna get you, and it's just like some beefy ass fucking dude, and you shoot him with the electrocution, pistol, and then to me, it was like the voice actors just had a fucking day where they're just like, and it was that nonstop. Every enemy in the entire game has a separate set of dialogues where you shoot them with this electricity thing,
yes,
and they're just fucking Home Alone 2 style, like getting their skeleton exposed.
But you're real close, but you're not quite there, Griff, because it's not Home Alone 2 style, it's Three Ninjas style, because all the enemies in this game are like 90s California bros. They literally sound like that.
Very true.
Whoever decided to make that decision is like a genius. All the enemies are like, kill the Lombac. Like, I can't even do it, but it's like that. It's like that Three Ninjas California thing.
You're right, because there's also, you're so right, because there's also like the gimmick too is like you're in another dimension, so all the archetypes are twisted, right? So it's like this constant villain that you've always had to fight through all the Ratchet and Clank games is now like this peaceful, loving dude that just wants to be a spiritual guru, man.
Yeah.
But there's still like the jackasses of that same like race, and they're like, "Hey man, kill the Lombacs."
Okay, that does sound pretty good.
There's a ball that you throw out, and it just keeps hitting enemies on the head. Like, it just
like that
every
one.
time every time you hit the R2 button, the ball just slams back into the enemy's head. It's wonderful.
There's a timing element to it, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That one was good. But, I mean, Jeff, it's a Ratchet and Clank game. You're leveling up your weapons, and they get absurder and absurder, and it's just a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Maybe I will give it a shot. We shall see. I'll wait for a sale.
Yeah, I think that'd be a great one to pick up on sale. And, it's probably going to be the type of thing that's going to be free on PS Plus in a year or two.
Yeah, I get that vibe, too.
Yeah. Although,
I mean,
does PS Plus still
there are
have good
still
games?
not PlayStation 5 PS Plus games.
They're not? What do you mean? There are.
Not that are only available on PlayStation 5.
Oh. Okay, sure.
Aren't prevalent.
No, they're not. I have bought, I believe, 2 games for my PS5. I don't know if I count the DLC for Final Fantasy VII as one of the games. I feel pretty good about myself. I have, however, continued to buy Switch games in large numbers, and I want to talk about a game that I think both of you should get if you haven't already, which is The Great Ace Attorney. Have either of you played this game?
No, I want to.
Have
I
either
do not.
of you I figured. Have either of you played the Phoenix Wright series at all?
I have.
And you're done with it, Griff. You don't like it?
It's not I get frustrated with it, so it's not for me.
No.
Well, I think we've had this conversation plenty of times on the podcast where it's like, it's a weird courtroom thing that doesn't make any sense to me. So then I have issues with finding the logical fallacies because I'm thinking in terms of fucking Law and Order episodes that I've watched
Griffin's
in the past.
out here Johnny Cochraning it. He's like, if the glove don't fit. No, I completely understand, Griffin, and that is so. Okay, for people who don't know, Phoenix Wright, or Ace Attorney, as it is sometimes known, is a series about a courtroom lawyer, a defense attorney, who takes on just really difficult cases where the odds are stacked against him, and typically successfully defends his clients. The thing about this world is that the judicial system is completely different than the real judicial system, and that not only do you defend your client, but you also prove someone else guilty every time. So, like, literally you go in there and you're
sometimes
like,
a robot man.
Did a robot man do it in one of them?
I don't know. Isn't that another attorney?
You're thinking about the robot man in Danganronpa. There's definitely a robot man in that game.
Okay, well,
anyway,
same type deal.
There's a coffee drinking ninja man. He's pretty cool.
Maybe that's
a ninja man.
Anyway, so yeah, it's a game basically where people are accused of crimes, lots of punny naming schemes, absurd, like, perfect crimes that, like, where the blame is placed on them, but someone else did it. And under the guise of playing as a defense attorney, protecting your client, you're actually just, like, solving the mystery in real time with a courtroom as a backdrop. It's super fun, though. The core gameplay loop is basically you gather evidence before the trial, and then you use that evidence to expose contradictions.
That evidence is usually like in a hunt and like a picture.
Yep, like a hunt and peck, like you. I mean, it is what it is. You explore a scene. You can't leave the scene until you found all the evidence. It's pretty linear, but you gather evidence, by clicking on different points of interest in a scene, and then you go to the trial, and you use the evidence to, like, press people and expose contradictions in their testimony. And through this and a couple other little systems, you find out who the real guilty party is. Might sound kind of lame. It's super, super fun. The writing is usually on point. This series of games, actually, originally released for the 3DS, this is the first time it's come west, and it was a bit of a localization nightmare for, I think, a number of different reasons. Number one, when Phoenix Wright or Ace Attorney was localized for the West, they rather famously decided to move the setting from Japan to, like, San Francisco, which has been very difficult as more and more, like, traditional Japanese cultural elements were introduced, and even more so given that this game is just set in feudal Japan, and involves very heavily, like, the interplay between Japan and Britain's cultures. Actually, it's not feudal Japan. It's turn of the century Japan, early 1900s. But yeah, it very much involves cultural exchange between Japan and England. So there's no way that they could have pretended that, like, this story was set in America. So for the longest time, it didn't really get a lot of attention, but it was just released for Switch this summer in a collection of 2 games, and the localization is like some of the best Ace Attorney localization I've ever seen. And the story is super good. Much better, I would say, than almost any other Ace Attorney game I've played. It just goes places that I think most other games... these games haven't shied away from some kind of more difficult subject matter, although I think they're kind of more targeted at like older teens, maybe, in terms of the level of maturity. This game deals with like intercultural racism and like the difficulty of being a Japanese person living in England and dealing with like constant oppression and like the difficulty of cultural exchange. You hang out with Sherlock Holmes a lot, who goes by the name Herlock Sholmes because the estate of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle apparently is very litigious. He's amazing. He's just like he's extremely lovable. He's kind of a himbo character, which I think Jamie, when I said that word, had to look it up online.
Yep.
But basically he's the master of deduction, but like he always kind of screws up his deductions a little bit, so you have to go in and correct them. But it's just super charming and super fun. And at the core, as with every Phoenix Wright game, is like this kind of family of lovable characters, one of which is Sherlock Holmes, one of which is you, and you have a love interest / legal assistant who comes with you. But the cases are really cool. Like I said, they kind of look discrimination and other things square in the face. You're facing off against this prosecutor who's like very obviously has an axe to grind with Japanese people, and he says some pretty egregious stuff. But I can tell, I've gotten pretty far. I beat the first game and got about halfway through the second game. I can tell that he's going to have a really interesting arc. And like have to kind of come to terms with that. The thing about these games is that they set up all these characters, and like every character gets such a thorough like exploration of their motives throughout the course of the game. And sometimes it's like hilariously anime and overwrought and like Japanese soap opera, but they go so deep on these characters and what makes them tick. And I think just because of where they decided to set this series, moving back to this period in Japanese history, it leads to some really interesting places and kind of just powerful places that I think the series hasn't really touched before, because it was always kind of in this imaginary, near future timeline. It didn't really have like big stuff going on. It was like if there were big issues in the series, they were issues that were dreamt up as kind of plot issues. Whereas the big issues here are like, oh my God, Britain and Japan just signed this like treaty of cultural friendship. Like if we try a British person for murder in Japan, like how will that affect our relationship with England? And like you can see like the more sycophantic people are like, oh, we need to go easy on this person. Whereas, some of the more like culturally prideful people are like, no, we need to like show that Japan is strong. There's just a lot of really cool stuff going on that I wouldn't expect.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, from this series. And I think you owe it to yourself if you play one Phoenix Wright game. I think this is probably the one to play. It's just a lot more mature, a lot more interesting in what it's bringing to the table. And you get like 2 games for, I think, $40. So if you have any interest at all in kind of visual novel type games that have some fun puzzle solving elements, and kind of the satisfying mystery solving that comes with this series, then you should try this one out, because it's super good. Could definitely be
down for that.
But yeah,
that's cool.
That's pretty much all I got to say about Great Ace Attorney. I really like it. I wasn't sure what to think, because I had read that when it first came out, some people had issues with it, but I think it's extremely good. I think the first game, the cases are a little bit easy, but the last case of the first game is quite good, and I can tell that things are only getting better in the second game. There have been some really good cases.
How long are these games?
They're pretty hefty. I think the first game was around 20 hours. That's about what you can expect from both.
Is it the kind of thing where it's like is it the kind of thing where it's a visual novel and it doesn't really feel like 20 hours?
Yeah, it's a lot of visual novel content, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, that's really the genre that it would probably most be identified with. A lot of reading, some light interaction, when you're exploring the scene of the crime, and then the court cases where you're, choosing evidence to present at pivotal moments. So yeah, I would describe it as a visual novel. You're definitely doing a lot of reading, so, you expect a lot of rich characterization and development. But, it can get a little exhausting, of course, because you're consuming a lot of text. But yeah, the hours definitely do fly by. I mean, you're going to be totally hooked, and the game does a really good job of kind of tying all the different narrative elements across these different cases together in interesting ways, always providing a little hook or a cliffhanger to keep you coming back. Yeah, there's a lot to keep you on the hook in these games.
That's cool.
Yeah.
There's multiple, like, okay. So typically, like, within Ace Attorney games, there's, like, multiple chapters and stuff like this. Mm-hmm. But you're saying there's multiple games kind of packed into this?
Yeah, so there
are great Ace Attorney adventures?
Yes, I think it's like Great Ace Attorney Chronicles or something, or maybe it's Adventures.
Oh.
And there are 2 games in this release. Each game has 5 chapters or trials in it. So it's 10 trials across 2 games, but they tell one story. I don't know exactly how that worked. I guess it was maybe just serialized, or it was always planned to be a duology, but it's very clear at the end of the first game that there's a lot of story left. The first game really ends on a big stinger, and then cuts, and then the second game goes to some pretty interesting places that I haven't fully understood the implications of yet, but it's very clear these games were always designed to be part of one whole. But yeah, it's a lot of game. Yeah, like I said, I put probably like 30 hours into it at this point, and I still have 3 more cases left. So
sure, and this game came out already in Japan.
Yep, it was a 3DS release originally. I think it came out, let's say, in 2016 or something like that.
So it's pretty safe to say that like this story is concluded.
Oh, it's done. I mean, so I actually did a survey, which they sent to everyone who purchased the game. And they asked, would you like to see more stories in this universe? So I don't think they've ruled out the possibility of returning, but the conclusion of the second game is a pretty definitive conclusion, as I understand. It's extremely narratively satisfying. From
Ace Attorney commits seppuku.
Herlock Sholmes dies.
Probably all of that, yes. You do carry around a samurai sword with you, which is kind of amusing.
That's amazing.
Yes, you just keep it sheathed all the time, but you bring it into a courtroom, which I'm pretty sure is not okay.
Also, I apologize. Maybe you said this already, but are you playing as Phoenix Wright, or is this departed from that dude?
Okay, yeah, so that's an important little tidbit. It is the turn of the century in the 1900s, so you're not playing as Phoenix Wright. You're playing as one of his ancestors.
Traveler, Phoenix Wright.
No, you're playing as an ancestor. I can't remember his name, Naruhodo something or another. It's his actual name. They use full-on Japanese names. But there are a lot of callbacks for people who've played the series before. You always start out facing the same prosecutor, and you will be facing that same prosecutor, one of his ancestors, in the first trial of the game. And there's a bunch of visual gags. I didn't even mention this. So one of the delights of the Phoenix Wright series is in the trials, as you interact with the witnesses and the people who actually did the crimes, who are pretending to be witnesses. They all kind of have these hilarious tells and reactions when you catch them in a lie. And this game continues that to a level that the series hasn't seen before. Typically, there would be little small animations or maybe a couple of frames showing something happening. These are fully, 3-dimensional characters that have great reactions and are always doing wild stuff, and just lots of visual gags of all kinds of things. There's a British woman in the first trial who has a hat that has a swan on it, a really overwrought, goofy British hat, but it turns out the swan is alive and it squawks at you when she gets mad at you and stuff.
A Minish Cap.
Yeah, Minish Cap, exactly. There's lots of fun stuff, and there's also a lot of little new wrinkles. There are juries in the trials, so what that means is it adds some new gameplay elements which don't need to be explained here, but it also adds 6 more characters that have humorous reactions and humorous dialogue. And amusing animations that all kind of add character and flavor to the game.
Cool.
Yeah, it's super fun. It's a great... I would call it a great book with some fun head-scratching moments. Some maybe a little bit more fun than others, but solving a mystery is always great, and you definitely feel like a genius sometimes in these games.
Sounds like a great thing to play on the train for me.
Maybe. Go ahead, Griff.
No, Jamie was a segue to something?
Yeah.
The
Okay.
Monster Train? Is that what it was a segue to? Do you want me to talk about another Switch game I'm playing?
That we've talked about it plenty. Yeah, go for it.
I just wanted to say
I
Monster
want to talk
Train is
about
on
Genshin.
Switch.
So get your shit in.
I'm just going to say real quick, Monster Train's on Switch. You guys should play it. It is the best deck building roguelite since Slay the Spire. It's its own thing. It's really cool. You should play it.
I think it's free on Game Pass too for PC.
Maybe.
Right?
Play it somewhere. It's real good. It's a
I
great
have.
game. Fine, whatever. You are.
I am.
All right.
I
I
own
don't need to
Monster
talk about
Train.
Monster Train anymore. Tell me about Genshin, Griff.
No.
I have to earn it.
Yep. I want it. No,
Right.
I will postpone that because I think that there's some other things that I'm actually more curious about, and that's Jeff, your thoughts on Tales of Arise, since I've got the disc
Yeah.
ready
Yeah.
to rock and roll. I've downloaded the PlayStation 5 version, haven't gotten the PlayStation 4 disc, and I've heard there's a man with a mask.
There is a man with an iron mask who just goes by the name Iron Mask. It's very good.
Excellent.
So I actually forgot to do this before we started, but just off the top of my head, I'm going to say some of the terms that are used in a completely serious way in this game, just so you get a sense of the hilarious jargon. Okay, we've got
Okay.
Dana, Rena, Lenigus, Eldamanansa, Cyslodia, Calaglia, Mosgul, Fagan Ruins. It just goes on and on.
These are terms or
These are different things. Some of them are races. They're all just bullshit anime JRPG jargon, because that's what this game is loaded with. So I don't know if
I thought you were
guys...
going to talk about the linear motion battle system, the LOMS system.
I don't know if it still is that. I don't think it is, because it's 3D. That's not linear. That's all kinds of directions. Anyway, okay, so Tales is a long-running series. I've played a couple of them. Griff, you've played a few of them, right?
For sure.
Yeah. It's so I actually read something. I'm going to steal this shamelessly from another review, but it was described as like the junk food of JRPGs. Like it tastes good. You kind of know what you're going to get. There's probably better stuff out there, but man, is it yummy. And I would kind of say that about Tales of Arise. I think it might actually be like a little better than junk food. Like it might be like Japanese McDonald's, right? Like it's like, yeah, it's, you know, deep down, it's like kind of junky.
Beautifully crafted trash.
Yeah, but like, you know, someone's bringing you your food, like you're ordering like the frickin', you know, like crab cake burger or something. Like you're getting some weird novelty items you wouldn't get elsewhere. Like this is some yummy junk food. Like this is some top tier junk food. So, Tales, what would I say makes this series what it is?
Breasts.
Breasts certainly figure into it. That's one element. I would say, for one, kind of combo-focused, pseudo-action-y battle systems, where you use arts, ARTES, and you link them together to create chains of attacks. And it's more of a real-time system than like your Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest. That's one thing about Tales games. Another thing about Tales games is that they have character skits, where essentially
One of my favorite things.
Yeah, and this game is chock full of them. Cool. Essentially, you press a button, you're taken to another screen where two or more of your party members interact with each other. You get some more kind of character development and flavor about the world, some humor, maybe some tropey stuff, but they're scattered all throughout the game. What are some other kind of Talesy elements, Griff? Help me out here.
Yeah, it's a JRPG with a lot of anime flavoring, right?
Yeah, heavy shonen energy, but even so, like in this game, like the characters, I actually really want to look at the main character's age because I think he might actually not be like 16.
Sure. my primary understanding of Tales comes from Vesperia, which I will be drawing on for any conversation we have here, but does Tales of Arise have like in a combat encounter, are there like goals that you are tasked to complete? Like do a combo with do a 6-hit combo, or knock the enemy off the boat.
No. I mean, I did get a trophy for doing a 100-hit combo recently, which I didn't think I'd ever get. No, I wouldn't say that's a thing. The combat has changed, as I understand it, and I think one of the big things that has probably given a lot of life to this game relative to some of the older games is they finally switched off their old proprietary engine, and they're just using Unreal now, and the game looks gorgeous, for one. Oh, cool. So you're gonna turn this game on, and you're gonna be struck by how beautiful the world looks. It's got this kind of painterly vibe. Characters are great. And the combat is super fluid. It's something that I love about the combat. So it does do that thing which a lot of JRPGs do, right? Where you run into an enemy and then you're transitioned to a combat screen rather than just launching right into combat. Mm-hmm. But the transition, I was dumping on the whole PS5 SSD thing, but the transitions are so fast. Like, you are in that combat scene in probably a second or less. I would say like half a second you're in the scene. So it does a really good job of staying snappy and fun all the time, and then you can kind of launch into all your attacks really quickly, and you can spam your arts as much as you want because you don't have MP for those. The only like MP you have is for healing arts, so it's pretty free in that regard. Combat is fun, and it I would say kind of starts out feeling a little bit random, but I've kind of started to get a flow, and the game does a good job of kind of throwing stuff your way throughout. So like you start off with just your arts, and then later you get like boost abilities, which essentially like each character has like a specialty, which they sort of express through their boost arts. Like one character can knock enemies over, one character can interrupt spells, one character can hit flyers, and you can actually switch between these characters on the fly at any point. I've been mostly controlling the main character and letting the AI do the rest, but
I hear there's some benefit to that too.
To just letting the AI take over?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the default. Like, you're only ever controlling one character at a time. There is some benefit to switching around during battle, which you're free to do. It's relatively simple to do, honestly. But yeah, I mean, typically you're kind of focusing on one person and maybe swapping to and from depending on special scenarios. But yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, I'll just say that the only thing that I've really understood about this game, not having played it myself, is that with the arts and certain functions that your characters can do, like you have the whole bevy in front of you to use in combat. However, as a player, an agent in the game, you can only select so many. However,
That's correct.
When you put it on the you take it away, please. I don't want to screw
it up. So I know exactly what you're talking about, Griff. So the way that setting your arts works is that it's like a combo system, like kind of vaguely like a fighting game. So you press a button to do an art, and you have the triangle, the square, and the X button that you can map arts to, and then you can have aerial versions of those as well. But your non-player characters, who are just AI controlled, can use any art. So it's actually, they're kind of overpowered in that way, and I appreciate it because I'm playing on hard mode, and if they couldn't use literally any art, it would be extremely difficult to progress in the game. But yes, you're right, Griffin. So your non-player characters don't have the same limits in terms of how many arts they can have set at once, and they can select from their entire skill list. So yeah, that's probably a new phenomenon, right?
Well, I mean, I guess I don't know. I don't remember.
To you, yeah, at least from Tales of Vesperia,
previous Tears games.
But yeah, the combat is really fun. It's super combo heavy. It's super flashy. The game does a really good job of like when you've wailed on an enemy enough and you've like played well, it just gives you these one-hit kill moves that you can use, which are really fun and always just look great. And because the game loads quickly, like you do the kill and then you're just out of the battle screen right after the kill, and it's just like you just feel really powerful.
Huh.
And the kills are weaker. Like if you're fighting a boss or something, those moves don't kill them; they just hurt them a lot.
Do a lot of damage. Gotcha.
Yeah, but they're used to great effect, and there's a lot of these really cool moves that kind of like take over the camera and do a cinematic thing that just makes you feel like a badass. So that's super cool. Combat in general is just really fun. The other thing about this game that's pretty decent, I think, relative to maybe some of the other Tales games, because I've played a few of them, is the story is like, it's not incredible, but it definitely is unafraid to go to some tough places. Like the premise of the game is this invading race, the Renans, has completely enslaved the Danans, which is like basically the main character's race, and there are 5 different realms on your planet that the invading race has enslaved, and they're all enslaved in different ways. So you start off in like a fire realm where everyone there is like forced to essentially just mine ores until they die.
Got a little Hunger Games situation going on there, huh?
Well, the realms don't have any contact with each other, actually, or at least very limited contact. So
we got a little Hunger Games situation.
I was about to say.
There's a little Hunger Games situation going on. Yeah, so you start out as a slave, and you're dealing with some pretty heavy stuff. There's a lot of racism, like Renan against Danon racism, but also a lot of hatred of Danons against Renans, and kind of some mild exploration of the futility of like forever war and genocide. And I've reached the 3rd realm right now, and there's some really interesting plot stuff happening in this realm in terms of kind of thinking about what it means to like overcome being enslaved, and like is it sufficient to kill your oppressor, or does something else need to happen? And the game is working towards that in a way that I think is definitely has a lot of anime bullshit, and also some really predictable plot elements, which are fine, but it also has some cool stuff and some moments where I'm like kind of impressed that they were willing to go there and not provide kind of an easy answer to some pretty difficult issues. And I would say the 3rd realm that I'm currently in is probably the most exciting in that regard, in terms of just showing interesting kind of permutations of what the original idea they put forward around like oppressors and victims, and what it means to break the cycle. And I think it's pretty cool. I had read some reviews that said it can get a little bit too equivocal about like what's good and what's bad in the end, but hopefully it doesn't go too far that way, and that was just one reviewer's distaste, because it seems like it's actually got some nuance to it. I love all the characters. They're really fun. They're definitely, again, a little tropey, but like I think Shion, the main girl, is supposed to be a little bit of a tsundere, but she's not bad. Yeah, it's a little bit more delicate in terms of its anime bullshit than I thought it would be, which is nice. And it's just fun to play. I'm having a good time with it, and it looks great.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. I think you just addressed it right there, like with that and Ace Attorney. Like, it seems like is it that the medium is now taking on more complex topics and doing good by it, or is it?
I think it's a combination.
But is it wishful thinking?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both. I think that it's easy to say, right, that like, oh, I've been not me, but like, oh, everyone's been entranced by essentially just better animations, right? But it's really not that, I don't think. I think, that plays a role, and I think it's going to lower the barrier to entry, and I think it actually matters. Like, it matters a lot in the case of Phoenix, right? I think it matters maybe a little less in Tales of Arise, but, I think, these games I think they are, in fact, daring to try a little harder. I think, compared to the other Tales games I've tried, or spent significant time on even, this is it's just a more mature story. The characters are less insufferable. They're less predictable. I mean, they're not unpredictable, but they feel more human, I think, than they have in the past. The skits feel like they just unfold at a nice pace. I think there's just lots of great characterization. I think they're just high effort games. I think they might be paragons of the genre to some degree. I think they're people, I don't know. I wouldn't say that Tales is a paragon of JRPGs, but it might be a paragon of Tales games.
Sure. Okay. That makes more sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's probably the best Tales game to come out in a while, in terms of, what its ambitions are and what it's trying to tackle. I don't think it's just a veneer. I think it's I think it's really, I think there's some real effort there and some real care.
If I played on the train, are people going to think that I'm masturbating?
Yep.
I will say I did just meet a character.
Do I have to turn my volume off when my parents are around?
No, you don't have to turn your volume off. But I did just meet a character who has a very definite butt wiggle when she walks.
Nice.
The game has been relatively restrained, but then they were just like, you know what, this one, she's just hot. So here's her ass jiggling. Check it out, guys.
You happy?
Yeah. Also, you can definitely buy swimsuit costumes if you want to spend money.
Cool.
Oh, that's right. There's also that controversy of like the pay to win opportunity.
So here's the thing about pay to win. It's really more like pay to make the game not fun. The game is not balanced around pay to win at all.
Right. So let me back that up. It's pay to have an easy mode, right? Like, so instead of grinding, you can buy basically character experience. And
so there's
obfuscate the need to actually do battles.
Exactly. There's fully 5 difficulties in this game. Like, there are a lot of difficulties, but if even that is too much for you, you can just be like, I'm gonna buy 1,000,000 levels and then just do that. So it's there. It's a monetization, and if as one should, you're grossed out by the mere presence of monetization, then it's a problem. If your only gripe with monetization is if it imbalances the core game, then you don't need to worry about it, because the game is there's plenty of options for players who want to create greater levels of accessibility and
power to the players.
Exactly. However, you're not going to get all the sexy swimsuits unless you pay money. But you do get lots of fun cosmetics like cat ears and devil horns and goofy glasses and monocles and shit.
Do they wear them in cutscenes?
Yes, they do.
Yes!
They wear them in all of the cutscenes, and I love it so much. They wear them in the skits, which are just like little comic panels. They have them on there too. It's so good. I love it so much.
I recall that being... So I think this was probably blown out of proportion, because I recall that being something of note back in the Tales of Vesperia time on the Xbox 360, where you could buy basically like healing potions. I don't know if you could buy specifically levels, but you could buy useful in-game items that would help you progress through the game faster, and then also cosmetic things with your character.
You can buy all that crap, but it doesn't matter. Like, you do not need it at all. Don't be swayed by all the look, this is a game that, for whatever reason, the publisher or some powers that be want to milk the whales for everything they can. But don't buy the premium editions, just buy the normal edition. You're not missing anything of value. The game throws so many fun dress-up things at you. You get tons of experience easily.
Sorry, what I was probably poorly trying to say was, I think Tales games have been doing this for plenty of time.
That's
so
probably
the fact
true.
that it's happening now is not novel, because I know it was happening in Vesperia, which was 1 billion years ago.
The worst part about the in-game purchases, I will say, is that whenever you go to rest at a campsite, you get a little notice in the bottom right of the screen that's like, new downloadable costumes available. And I'm like, no.
Yes. Zack Island is calling.
You can dress up as Nina from Tekken with one of your characters, I will say.
Heck yeah.
No, but the game, it does a really good job. There's you can find owls throughout the world map. And when you do, each one gives you a cosmetic, and then if you find enough of them, you get more cosmetics. And honestly, that's plenty for me. I'm getting lots of fun dress up going on.
Cool.
I put a halo on someone. I gave someone angel wings.
Well, speaking of video games that have potentially unscrupulous monetization tied to them, I would like to tell you, gentlemen, about a little game called World Flipper.
Yeah, what even is that? Is pinball?
Yeah, what even is that? So, World Flipper is a game for mobile phones, and it is developed by Psy Games. You may remember Psy Games from...
Oh, wait, they did the dragon one, Lost Dragons.
From Dragalia Lost.
There you go.
And Blue, was it Blue Eternal. Shit, I don't remember.
Oh, they did that one? The one that was super popular that I can't remember the name of?
I think yes, I think so.
I think so, yeah. What was that game called?
It had the fighting game spin-off that came out that was actually pretty good too. But yes,
Blue
Jeff, if you
Gender.
were looking that up, that's great. What's that?
I said Blue Gender.
No, that's not it.
Where's my phone?
But yeah, it's a world flipper in concept is a really cool idea where it's like, what if you did an RPG with player characters that was mechanically a pinball game? Your worlds are a board, a pinball table, and you flip the flippers and knock the people into certain obstacles, and there's your bouncy things that knock people around the board, and there's like routes and lanes and everything like that, and there's some skill involved.
Lanes? Is there
Also,
jungling?
There's lane serial experiments if we want to keep talking about old anime.
Also, Grand Blue Fantasy.
Thank you, Grand Blue. So it's a pinball-esque game that has quote unquote RPG elements. So why I want to lead by saying it's a Psy Games game, it's because it falls into the mold.
Gangnam Style.
Exactly.
You sounded so dead, Jamie.
being very much in that mold of we're a gotcha first and game second. So as much as it's easy to dunk on games that I do enjoy, like Genshin Impact,
I would not dunk
this
on
game
Genshin at all.
Is like insidious on that. And really, when I started playing it, really put into stark relief like what is bad about Gacha and Psy games and what was successful with Genshin. So like I said, World Flipper is, and unless you've played Dragalia, I don't think I can really do this justice, but basically, any Psy games game is, you've got a story mode that's multiple worlds. You got, like your Mario, like 20 worlds, and each world has a sub world with then sub worlds in it where you're engaging in the game mechanics. And those mechanics, differ from game to game, whether it's Dragalia or Grand Blue or now World Flipper.
Is it like Fire Emblem Heroes, where it's like chapters that get released over time with sub things in each one, like submissions? Yeah.
Yes, 100%, Jeff. And Dragalia does that same thing. So here's the problem initially, since you said that with World Flipper. I am in World 4, and they've just released new content the other day, maybe yesterday, that said, hey, come and play the end game material that's Necropolis. You have to finish 11-9 world. And I'm like, oh no. I can't do this again. So I'm like, I can't shit my way through another fucking 7 levels of trash to get to the end game where then things actually matter, and I build out a team comp, and I care about skills, and it's just yeah, it's not good.
I mean, Genshin.
It's not good, and it's not good like Psy games
syzygy or whatever.
What's that?
What Genshin has the moment of syzygy or whatever, that thing, the Moonraker or whatever it's called. I don't know, man. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, moment of seismicity or whatever, where the battleground resets. I think that's apples and oranges. In this case, this is more like, I think it's important to stay in the lanes of like a Psy games game, because it's very much following that same model. So I already said it's pinball driven in terms of its game format, which is fun. Like, you flip the flippers, you knock them around the battlefield as you're dealing with a party of 3 characters. So and then there's enemies on the map. So you flip the flipper, you try and hit the enemy, and your main character is gonna do damage to the obstacle on the map. And then, you've got 2 other characters which then, contribute to your team score, and you've got special abilities, and you've got 3 to 5-star ranking characters that have all sorts of crazy buffs and abilities and maps and and all those things that come along with a side games game where it's like, oh, I can learn about the backstory of character XYZ, and they fit into the world thusly, and don't read this story until you're up until chapter 8 because this is going to expose more things into the world that you may not be aware of yet. And I think that it just fails on so many levels, which is a bummer because like a RPG pinball game sounds like so much fun. It
sounds incredible. Fun. Yeah.
And the truth is, it's like a side games game, you can put it on autoplay. So I have stopped actively playing World Flipper. I now have World Flipper running like a screensaver on my phone. That then flips the flippers and does a better job, honestly, than I am at targeting enemy weak points negotiating the maps and tables.
Quick question. Do you just have this running? Like, is this like your cookie clicker?
Well, like it runs until I run out of stamina. And
okay, so it's not cookie clicker.
unlike Tail or Dragalia, I am not bereft and overburdened with stamina regen things at this point. So I am literally hitting a wall that's like, I cannot not play this game. I cannot force this game to play itself myself because I'm not at a high enough level hitting the metagame that's producing the jiggies that then allow me to continue the loop. So I have to wait and let it do its cooldown before I can actually quote unquote play it again.
I mean, Genshin has fragile resin, man.
So I think this is a good segue to talk about Genshin, and World Flipper has been fun, and it's also been like a really, like I said, a cool juxtaposition to Genshin to say like what is good gacha game design and what is not. So when I started playing World Flipper, you're immediately smacked with the problem that I would say gacha games has, where it's like take your pull, and here's your jackpot reward of all your special characters and all your lights flashing, so on and so forth. And the problem with side games is the intent is there are hundreds of characters, because you then build a team unique to each situation that you want to engage in. So you have your fire team, you have your water team, you have your lightning team, your wind team, your rock team, so on and so forth. So World Flipper is doing the same thing there.
Yeah, whereas Genshin, you just have like your core team. I mean, you can have more than one team, but you don't need to.
Right. And to your Spiral Abyss comment, like, yeah, there's merit in building up more than a core team, but is that the crux of the game? Is that your meta game end game? By no means, no.
I mean, well,
but World Flipper
hold on.
is
yes. I think it is your meta game, but the balance is different, right? So I would say for me, and I haven't played 2.0. I know, I'm sure it's amazing. I just don't want to have a game be a game I have to play every day right now. But Genshin's balance between metagame and just story content and world exploration is so heavily tipped, I think, in the early phases at least, towards exploration and story.
Yes.
Like, yeah, you can enjoy the heck out of that world on its own merits. It does not need... You don't need any of that crap to have a great time exploring that world.
Right. I'm not doing my World of Warcraft instant runs of Chapel of Crimson.
You're not doing your Childs every week?
What's that?
You're not doing the Golden House every week? Fighting Child?
Dude. Yeah, I don't do that shit anymore. That's peasant nonsense. No, it's so to rewind here for just one quick second, I would say that the side game's problem is that is a exploitative system where the game is self-playable to a level where you're almost more effective not actually playing it yourself, and the content of the game, where then it might demand skill, is locked so far behind progression in the game. Where in Dragalia, it may actually, I would say that, like, the end game stuff that I engaged in was really fun, and you're playing with co-op, and it's all manual, and it's team comp, and you're actually having to know manipulation of your character and stuff like that. That doesn't exist in World Flipper at this point. But it's also posed to have that ready at the outset, and in order to achieve that end goal, you have to either spend money to get the resources to continue to force your way through the story campaign, or be patient and just kind of slog through by micromanaging your time to push the story bits along. And I think that is a really poor design in terms of a game, and really shits on gacha. Especially because once you see that too, like, had I not been somebody who's played multiple Cygames games and been a fairly blistered gacha individual at this point, the resource mechanic is flummoxing and intimidating and really, really uncomfortable, especially at the initial levels. And then also on top of that, knowing what I know about gacha, like, to me, I'm like, well, I'm not going to use these resources that I'm gaining because I'm going to wait until I slog through this crap to then potentially pull better, units, and then invest my resources into that. So I know you and Jeff, you and Jamie had that initial, like, turn against Genshin Impact, where you said, "Oh, I can smell it stinks of rotten gacha here because of all these resources." This game is just rife with that. This
is the dank basement of the Japanese casino. Smoke-filled air. Pachinko
somebody died in this app for sure.
And having played Genshin, I mean, and I don't know how much you want to speak to version 2, and you've told me about it a little bit privately, but it's a pretty classy game. I think it's I had a lot of fun with it, and if I were not otherwise engaged with other games, I might return to it. I think and I know it'll always be waiting for me in one form or another, and I think it's very generous with the amount of just, like, world exploration and fun it can offer you without any kind of investment on your part.
Yep. Yeah. So exactly to your point, like, Genshin by no means does demand payment to it. And one might also say World Flipper doesn't either, but I would also hazard that with Cygames' design of, like, hey, just put it on auto and this thing will play itself, so you can continue to progress through the hurdles that we have. It's not good. That's not good design, and that was present in Dragalia. I'm not certain if it was present in Grand Blue, but I think it front exists and foremost here in World Flipper. And I'm going to cut you off here real quick and just say that my biggest beef with this game is a pinball RPG sounds cool as fuck, and they completely beefed it. Like, it is a huge fucking bummer.
Totally fair. Also, I was going to say, I think that stuff exists in Genshin, but I just think they do it a lot better than so many others. Case in point, I guess, World Flipper.
Yeah.
But
yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's problems in the genre for sure, but I think that Genshin is elevated in that it's actually a fun game to play. And be engaged in. Though be it simplistic with its third-person action and exploration mechanics. But
it's got that Breath of the Wild, man.
It does. It really does. And the new release just does. To cover the beats that I wanted to cover with the new big update with Genshin Impact is, new landmass revealed, which means new large story beats and quests with voice acting and significant movement forward within the plot and new mechanics for your free, main character. Excuse me. And then as well as new, paid for characters if you choose to go down that route, or if you choose to hoard and do free to play, you can also cash in that way. But Jeff, since you exited, there's just been so much content that's been released, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
But I think the most notable thing is, this big new landmass. And again, I just want to say that, I think that this MiHoYo team is learning from their mistakes in the past. I think the mistakes in the past have been positive and really benefited the game, where they just took forever in development and said, here's Mondstadt and here's Liyue, and they're immense, and you can just take copious amounts of time spending in there, exploring, and then maxing out all your little objectives. Whereas in Inazuma, the new landmass, which is styled after Japan, they're slowly trickling out new islands over the course of several months, and objectives, flow as new islands are unlocked. So you can't do the WoW, speed run Grognar. Hey, I just made it to level 90 overnight because I did this, that, and the other, or I spent $1 billion and now I'm, the top tier of the list. They've made some smart decisions to forcefully gate progression within the game, which if you're a person who feels compelled to play and compelled to achieve all those things immediately, it does a good job of helping to kind of obfuscate that compulsion and say, hey, this is going to be doled out over time. Just take your time, enjoy what you have right now, instead of trying to consume everything that's out there right now.
Although one of my favorite things about exploring, especially Liyue, was just that it was so big. There was always something new to find.
For sure, Liyue is definitely that. But I think that, Inazuma does the same thing, but they add so much more complexity. Challenges or puzzles are slightly more challenging. Environmental hazards are more pressing. The world quests are gated by a daily, if you want to get to a point where you can influence the world to not operate in a way that is actually being a hindrance to you as a player, it takes time to get through. Yes, it takes time to actually prompt those quests to move on to their next phase.
Okay, all right. Well, again, it's something that I haven't written off Genshin. It's just something I haven't come back to, and Gacha has a way of kind of leaving people behind. So and I think it's that's partly my own psychology, because again, it doesn't matter. It's a single player game. Who cares? Right. But it's a lot. But I haven't written it off, and I appreciate that it's still good, and I appreciate that MiHoYo still cares. I think they are a developer that does seem to care about the quality of their product quite a bit. They want to be well regarded in the space, I think. And they also want to make money. Those two things don't have to be mutually exclusive.
I think that they are making money hand over fist, and they've done some things to help obfuscate the issues with gacha. But they've been honestly, frankly, terrible. Like you're talking about, here, take a shit in the middle of the street, to say here, take a shit on the sidewalk. It still fucking sucks if you want to try and achieve this situation. Yeah. And that it'll cost you money, but there's some mitigation in it. I will say that the most recent update that I think is happening right now, if not tomorrow, is introducing a character that kind of blindsides the stereotypical design for characters for the quote unquote
healer Kokomi or whatever.
Yes, Sangomio, Kokomi, they destroy the crit stat with her. So it's almost as if it's an educational purpose to say hey, you can play this game with a cool character and not be focused on this like whale level. I need to see the biggest numbers pop up.
I can't wait for them to issue an apology and correct the character to make her OP.
Well, so the most recent update, the 2.0, right, released the next big quest, which would then also cover the next Archon, which each region has the Archon associated with it, and much like Zhongli, the fan base is decrying the kit that they were produced with and saying this is kind of a shit character when compared to other viable options. And it's the typical discourse in any sort of YouTube centric vacuum chamber thing. We're
glad I'm not watching those YouTube videos anymore.
Yes, good for you. Yeah, but I mean, it was weird when they did do the pullback and modify that one character Zhongli when people were adamant about it. But I think that I'm in the mindset that this one is solid with how they do behave, and hopefully that then sets the behavior for going forward of saying like we're not going to do mea culpa bug fixes on specific individuals to try and boost them.
Yeah, and I mean ultimately I think it's not a bad thing that they buffed a character that people paid a lot of money for. But anyway, I am realizing that it's awfully late over here, and I think at least
we're definitely approaching 2 hours.
Yeah, I still have more stuff I want to talk about. We should get together again sometime and talk about more games like Deathloop.
Agreed. Yeah, Jamie, I know you might be at the end of your wits here, and I don't want to belabor this anymore, but I think Deathloop would be a great conversation to have. I'll just interject this here right now. This game is fantastic. Jeff, you probably won't like it because it's a first-person shooter, but me as Dishonored. A person who hates Dishonored, okay. I think this game is fantastic and does all the things that I wish Dishonored had done to help guide me in a path that makes that arcane style of game palatable.
I love it. Let's talk about it not now.
Jamie's a
for the love of God.
His life is crazy.
All right, we'll just go offline and I'll talk to Jamie more about Genshin.
All right, let's.
I would love to meet like in the next week or two.
Yeah, me too.
Talk more about it. Yeah.
Yeah, we can talk about next episodes here in time. I think at this point this is a good stopping point. Definitely more on our list. Some spoilers. Mario Golf Super Rush. I played some Pokemon Unite. I don't have any real things to say about Guilty Gear Strive except that the game's fucking awesome. A couple other things that we could probably talk about, like The Ascent.
I'd love to hear about those.
Fuck No More Heroes 3. Jeff, Axiom Verge 2, curious on your thoughts on that.
It's not that great.
Jamie, sounds like you're doing some deep dives into some older games that may be noteworthy. So I think that we can pause it here and leave that as a little tasty snack for the next time we get together and chat about the games of 2021.
Sounds good.
Hell yeah.
All right. Let's hope we can do this again soon so we can hit some of these other titles.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
All right, guys. Let's call it here.
Bye.
Calling it.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.